Hello folks, welcome to Tippcast with myself, Shane Stapleton, joined by Head of Sport in the Nenagh Guardian, Shane Brophy. Just a reminder, the Nenagh Guardian is out now, so go ahead and get a copy of that. Shane, plenty happened in the last 24 hours, even less. The sad passing of Teddy McCarthy, suddenly the Cork Jewel star who won both All-Irelands in 1990s. So terrible news there. And I suppose in stuff that isn't as real as that, but still important to plenty of people, is David Power stepping down as Tipperary football manager. We're going to have Anthony Shelly on talking about that a little bit later on. Not entirely unexpected.
No, I don't think so. I suppose we were maybe half expecting maybe something on Saturday after the Waterford game, but I suppose technically, I suppose he couldn't say anything because there was the remote possibility that if Carlow lost by 21 points on Sunday, that Tip would have got back in. I suppose it would look very funny if he resigned on Saturday and suddenly on Sunday they were still in the Talteann Cup. But I don't think it came as a surprise. I just think even just looking at him on the sideline the last couple of weeks, like you would have always seen David, he'd be very vociferous with referees and officials, and never in an overly aggressive way, but he'd be fighting his corner for his team and for his players, and that sort of went, and you sort of think the sense that was sort of the end of the road. And look, he's had a difficult few months with the passing of his mother and some other close family members, and I think his work situation has changed too. I know we'll talk about it more with Anthony Shelly later on, but look, for a guy that started out with the development squads in 2006 to now, he's only in his early 40s, I think, he's given so much. And I'd say he's not finished yet. I'd like to think maybe he'll take a break for a few years, maybe give a dig out to Kilsheelan, and maybe he'll come back again in the future. And look, there's so few die-hard football people in the county that they can't be lost at this stage. But look, he's given us some great times. He gave us the All-Ireland minor. He gave us the Munster senior in 2020. So he's created a great history for Tip. That's for sure.
Done so much, and even in the middle of all that, he managed Wexford for a stint as well. So he really has been around the block. So I think everyone in Tipperary that's interested in football should be fairly thankful for what he's achieved with the county. And of course, that day in the Munster final in 2020.
Yeah,
I mean, heartbeat. So often for David Power to put Tipperary football's best foot forward, he hasn't had players because players aren't available, or they were taken by the Hurling or whatever it might be. But whatever it was that season, COVID stopped Michael Quinlivan going travelling. Yeah. It allowed Colin Reardon to come home. He finally got a right good run at it, and look at what happened.
Yeah. You feel that all the ducks lined up that year for Tip, and it worked out. And maybe you think that the bit of luck we had that year with having everybody together, it sort of ran out after that. And you think it's in other circumstances, maybe 2020 mightn't have happened. But look, for that group of players, it did. And it was great to have it. For all the football they played, it would have been cruel enough for them to have some bit of silverware. And I suppose I would have thought that for Tipperary football to build on that, you'd love to have had some normality where the players get to go to all the schools with the cup and build and generate some momentum, and never got that. And I think they only got their medals last Christmas, 18, nearly 2 years after they won them. It just, while it was great, I'd always feel it reminds me of I'd be a Liverpool fan, and winning the league in 2020, something was taken away by the fact that it wasn't won in front of a big crowd and you had a big celebration, and just it's not quite the same. While it'll be marked in history, it just, you didn't get the full impact of it, if you know what I mean.
I do indeed. Denis Kelly joins us now. Denis, we were just talking, I'm not sure how big of a football man you are, but we were just talking about David Power leaving the fray as Tipperary football manager. Some service there.
Yeah, definitely. Look, he put a fierce effort in. I suppose the highlight was the winning in the Munster final, and I suppose it's disappointment this year, but with the turnover of players, I suppose it was to be expected. So look, he's given great service to the county, and I think we need to remember the highs as well as the lows.
Can you talk to us about your tenure so far as the Tipperary camogie manager? So we're into June now. You've had him since, I suppose, the end of the year, start of the season. What's it been like for you so far, this journey?
Yeah, it's really exciting so far. We've had a great, I suppose, few months there. The girls have really knuckled down, and anything we've thrown at them, they've seemed to come up trumps. So look, we've had a good run. We probably we would have liked maybe to get further on in the league, but we learned loads of lessons as well along the way. And probably that was very beneficial to us, going into the Munster Championship. So we had a good win in the Munster campaign then, and we've worked hard now for the last 3 or 4 weeks there. I got a good block of training in, so a lot of the hard work is done now, and the girls are good and sharp. So hopefully they'll bring the performance to the championship.
Yeah,
go ahead,
I was just going to ask Denis. Would you have noticed an extra pep in their step now that the first bit of silverware was won? How important was that? That they finally broke through and won something. They have something concrete to say. Okay, there should be an extra bit of confidence in their play going forward, shouldn't there?
Yeah, definitely. Look, there's a real buzz around the camp. We can't, I suppose, get too carried away with ourselves either. It's just a Munster Championship, but at the same time, you can't beat winning. It builds momentum, and there's serious fighting for positions now at the moment. We have a panel which is great. So other years maybe you were caught at the tail end of your panel through injuries or through travel or otherwise, but really the majority of the girls we have been looking to have in our panel are there, and they're all pushing each other hard. So look, you can't beat winning. There's a serious buzz around the camp, and they're all enjoying their training, and while it might be tough, they're enjoying it, and they're pushing each other hard to get a first 15 spot.
And in terms of your panel as well, I mean, some of the players that wouldn't have started, I don't think they started in the Munster final, like Mairead Eviston, Mary Ryan, pushing for spots. Training must be fierce enough considering the depth you have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is fairly it is full on, all right. But look, that's what you want, I suppose. That we can't really do us after the Munster Championship. There's no real challenge games you can get. So I suppose the strength of our panel will stand to us hopefully down the line. And those matches inside in training were fierce at times, and definitely people putting up their hand to get back in that first 15. Some of those that weren't starting, but it's tough. Our job is tough trying to pick the correct team.
Denis, I suppose if in terms of a staging post, maybe in terms of measuring progress, I suppose Clare is probably the obvious one, because I know when you were a selector with Bill last year, he had awful trouble with Clare. I think he played them 3 times, and I think it was 2 draws and a defeat, and they were sort of playing a style of hurling that's close to the modern men's game, moving the ball through the line, sweepers, and it seemed to caught you out. But this year against Clare, you've sort of destroyed them both times. So I suppose in terms of measuring your progress, I suppose that must be hugely, satisfying to see. Okay, a team that gave us problems last year, where we've beaten them comfortably twice this year.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good measuring stick, I suppose. But I definitely think we've come on. We have extra personnel that are really some of our backbone there is made up of personnel that weren't available last year. So that has really helped us. And I suppose also, we have a forward line there now that are really clicking, and we seem to have got the right mix. So hopefully again next Saturday that will continue, and we have good energy coming off the bench then as well. So that's vital. But yeah, look, Clare still won their first round last weekend, albeit a little bit of struggle against Down. So they're back on track, but they're in a tough group. But yeah, it was nice to do it, to beat them twice. And I suppose it's always harder, when you beat a team early in the year, to beat them again convincingly is difficult enough.
And Denis, there was a period there 3 or 4 years in a row when Tipperary were getting to All-Ireland semi-finals, couldn't quite burst through the glass ceiling. And then maybe it was a little bit of a backward step last year. But how big is the gap between the big trio of Galway, Kilkenny and Cork and everybody else?
Yeah, look at it. There has been a gap there. We're hoping to I suppose cut that gap, and maybe definitely we'll be looking to take down some of the big 3 this year. We have Kilkenny in our 3rd game, so that'll be a big challenge for us. We were disappointed the way that game ended in the league, so that'll be the first of those big 3 that we get to challenge. But again, we can't, I suppose, get carried away with ourselves and look down the line too far. Like Dublin ran Kilkenny to 4 points in the Leinster final, so they're going well too, and there'll be a big challenge on Saturday, and then we'll take it from there. But look, the gap is there, but it's up to us now to bridge it and try and push on.
Yeah, I was at the Dublin League game, which I think was in February, and they gave you an awful lot of trouble in that game. Like they're pretty compact in defence and like to work the ball through the lines. But I think definitely from observing you since then, you seem to be becoming more and more comfortable in how you deal with those sort of teams, and then I suppose counteracting them going the other way in terms of putting up big scores. Like that 126 against Clare must have been very, very satisfied. Because I know against Waterford you scored 4-11. It was sort of a bitty performance, but you definitely seemed to clicked an awful lot better against Clare.
Yeah, I suppose in terms of quality, Waterford would be that bit stronger. You'd think than Clare.
Yeah.
But at the same time, look at you have games like that, I suppose. So we really challenge the girls to up our points tally, because we were saying down the line, you might not win big games with tallies like of 11 points. So that's something we worked on. And now, putting maybe back a few goals with that as well again the next day. So there's always things to work on. And the girls are really good taking on board the challenge we set them, and Michael and Kevin and the lads. There's always a new challenge every day, and we're evolving all the time. So look, we're hoping to continue our vein of form the next Saturday.
And in terms of the challenge with Dublin, most people who are aware they're camogie will know of Aisling Maher, but there's probably a few others as well that you have to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, definitely. Look, there's Aisling Maher, Aisling O'Neill are two serious forwards. They'll be probably on most teams. Gannon sisters there, and they have quality throughout. So they will set up very defensively. That's to be expected. So it's up to us to come up with a plan to get around that. And we've been working on that for the last 2 or 3 weeks. So we're hoping that will come to fruition on Saturday.
Yeah, and I think it's I suppose it's a great, with the way the weather it is, a great opportunity for a big crowd to go to the Rag on Saturday. It's a double header with the junior team up against Wicklow, so like a great afternoon's camogie there for people to get along to. And like David Sullivan's juniors are going very, very well at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. They're flying as well, and you should have enough for Wicklow at the weekend. But we've good correspondence with David as well, and there's players coming between both panels as well. So there's good joined up thinking going on in Tip Camogie at the minute, and you'll be hoping for 2 wins all going well on Saturday. But definitely the crowd will help, and in the Rag especially. If you can fill the stand there, it gets a great buzz out onto the field, and the girls feed off that as well. So hopefully we'll see a big crowd in the good conditions.
Just in terms of like the panel turnover this past year and getting players back, can you give us sort of an outline of how it might have changed?
Yeah, well, I suppose first of all we had injuries there, so the likes of Clodagh Quirk, Karen Kennedy were not, Karen wasn't there at all last year. Claude only came back the tail end of the year. And you had Quiva McCarthy as well. She was injured as well. There was another few niggles through the year. So your panel was good. You had Corinne Blair is back as well. She went travelling. So she has hit good form this year as well. And also Teresa Ryan from Bursley there. She's been a big cog in the wheel of our team as well there since she came back. And she's around a while, but she had missed maybe 4 or 5 years, so she's fit in really well into our setup. So that was, you're talking 5-6 players there straight away, and there's others probably I'm forgetting, but so that's a big boost to any outfit. And we beat Cork in the last round at the championship last year, which wasn't enough, but we were really down to 20-21 players. So when you're pushed like that, it is hard to progress.
What was the one thing, Denis, when you thought that, okay, what's the one big thing we need to do to make the gap up to the big 3? What was the one area you focused on? Was it skill? Was it athleticism, fitness? What was the area you felt the Tip were maybe lacking in?
Yeah, we definitely focused. The first thing I suppose was work rate. That was the starting point there, because we felt maybe we weren't working hard enough last year. And it's a good starting point, I suppose. Sport play then was big as well in our agenda, and we've fitness-wise we've done more regular testing this year, and it gives us a good idea of where girls are at, and it's a bit of an onus on themselves to look after themselves and maybe get extra sessions in if needs be. So those were kind of some of the areas that we started out with, and we're still pushing a lot of those boundaries.
And in terms of winning the first Munster title since 2010 and the first bit of silverware, is it one of those things where you have to have a little conversation and say to them, look, are we satisfied with that, or do we want to kick on again?
Yeah, definitely. They enjoyed that night and the day after, and then we kind of, when we got back into training, we gave a few days off, and then we got back and we had a chat, and them girls are very ambitious in the panel there, and they're not happy with just the Munster Championship. They want to push on and go further, and the management and team and panel were all on the same page in that regard.
Just in terms of last weekend, and it's the championship started last weekend. Not your group, but there was 4 other matches. Any games catch your eye? Maybe with Antrim beating Limerick have been a surprise, or I suppose the big one was Cork and Galway. So, what did you take out of those games?
Yeah, Antrim beat Limerick. There was not much between them in the league either, so that wasn't a huge surprise. And I think Limerick had to travel up to Antrim, so that was, Antrim were going nicely there, so that was a tough one for Limerick. The big one, I suppose, was Cork and Galway, and that was one that Cork, I suppose, will feel they let slip. Like, there were 3 up at half time, could have been 5 or 6, and then failed to score for 20 minutes in the second half. So what Galway are, they're very tricky to put away, and you can't beat. They have that bit of experience of winning the All-Ireland, so they hung in, and eventually they got over that line. But again, there's very little in between those top teams, and we'll see Kilkenny now. I suppose they'll be pushing on from the league campaign as well, so they'll be hard to take down as well. But they're playing Wexford this weekend in the other match in our group, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes as well.
There's a lot of talk, within hurling about where it's going and tactics and all this kind of stuff. What have you seen in camogie in the last few years? What direction do you feel it's headed in tactically, and I suppose athletically and everything like that? New boundaries have been pushed all the time too.
Definitely, year on year, standards are being improved. It's definitely the bit more physicality is welcome, because sometimes the referee can be the star of the show, and you don't want that. People aren't going to matches to see that, and it turns people off. Maybe going to see you want to go see a spectacle. So definitely the quality has improved, and I suppose there is more room for maybe tweaks here and there still in the game, but definitely it's getting more of a airtime as well, and that's because of the game improving, I feel. So look, it's improving all the time. We can see there our girls are probably certain weeks doing 4 nights a week, and then they have work to do themselves. So it's similar commitment to the intercounty hurlers and footballers as well. But standards are definitely improving.
And do you get to see much of the hurling championship? I know you're obviously a huge amount of time taken up with the camogie and watching other teams and all that kind of stuff. Are you getting to see much of the hurling championship?
Yeah, I'm lucky I have an understanding wife there. She's into it as well. So Julie likes the camogie and hurl as well. So yeah, definitely getting a look at that, and it's very interesting. We had a great run there, and maybe a bit of a blip in the Waterford game. So hopefully now they'll get over awfully and push on after that. So it's great you'll be picking up things all the time from both codes. They're very similar. So tactic wise and everything else, you'll be watching out for different things.
And what do you think happened against Waterford? We all have our theories or whatever, but what do you think as a county manager looking over at it?
Yeah, it's hard to put a finger on it. I suppose Waterford, they hadn't a whole lot to lose. They were coming in there. They had no further involvement after that match, and I suppose they needed to give it a good rattle. Our lads then maybe came up a little bit. They were just a bit dead in their feet, and sometimes it's hard to get yourself up for a match like that. I know it was knockout, but for us, but at the same time, no matter how much you talk about it, it's sometimes you just come in flat to a game. So hopefully that was a blip, because they've had a great season so far. I suppose if we can add back in a few of the players that were missing. Barrett and Ford and Morris, they're huge players. Like, they'll be on any team in Ireland, so they'll give us a big boost going forward.
And Shane is terrified of Offaly there because he's so close to the border, not too far away from 2 metres as well. Are you hearing much, John, from the Offaly people?
Not a whole lot now. No, I was down in Kennedy last year training them, so I know a good bit of the Offaly crowd down there. No, they were disappointed with the under-20 result last week. They had a good first half, but it fell away then. So look, they'll be coming in. I suppose they'll be sore after losing to Carlow. That was one they were expected to win, and I suppose sending off maybe went against them and that. But look, they'll again be coming into that maybe with nothing much to lose. No one's expecting them to win, so it could be tricky enough.
Yeah.
Shane, could you get over the atmosphere in the under-20 final there the other day? I was in at it and it was class.
Oh, it looked incredible. I think there was somebody commenting the amount of Offaly fans that were in for the first game getting the good seats. There must have been just incredible. Like, they really bought into that team, and I suppose the Cork were deserving winners, but it would have been interesting to see how the game would have gone if Shane Kingston had been sent off in the first half, which she should have been. And again, it was one of those when I saw it at the time to think, if this incident happened 5 minutes or 10 minutes later, like sometimes you always see with refs that if an incident happens early in a match, he tends to give maybe a bit lenient, not to turn the game, but then to the letter of the law, you've got to impose the sanction, and it was a red card. And look, Offaly were frustrated afterwards in terms of the cynicism of Cork. But look, I think Offaly got a taste of what top level inter-county hurling now is, and in terms of cynicism, and like if you have to give away fouls to stop guys from going to town, and you got to do it. And if there's one thing that was maybe said of Cork in recent years at senior level, is that they nearly opened the door for you and make you a cup of tea to allow other opposition forwards to go in. Definitely seems that there's a group of young lads coming through that will be waiting for you at the door with a hurley and stopping you getting through. Like they do look like they have players that these mushrooms will finally flourish over the next few years.
So Denis, like whether you've been a player over the years or a coach in men's or women's teams or whatever, you do have to kind of find that balance in between. Well, we're not going to be a naive team here, somewhat cynical when needs be, but like you just can't be naive.
No, you can't. I suppose it was like chalk and cheese there. The start of the second half, young Mullins walked through, and the centre back for Offaly, he didn't get anything on him, and they got the goal, and it was over after that probably. But again, I don't know, as Leo O'Connor complaining afterwards, like, it's the rules yourself. Senior, you get a black card maybe and a penalty, but it's not in the under-20 game. So you utilise what you can, and Cork did that, and definitely Ben O'Connor has brought a good steel to that Cork team, and he looks serious man about his business, and he, he's had good success with Middleton down there as well. So he's a winner, and I'd say could see him in the hot seat there in Cork in a 2 or 3 years time.
Yeah, definitely. And like we've even seen it the last couple of years, obviously with the black card in the senior inter-county, but like even look at Lockmore against Ballygunner a couple of years ago, rugby tackles a boo. Like we're going to see rugby tackles throughout the club championship whenever that returns, Shane.
Oh yeah. Look, while the rules are there, you've got to play by them. And look, if you can stop a goal maybe and take a yellow card, you're going to take it. Like so. Look, I'd say Leo O'Connor will go away to his lads and say, look, lads, this is a taster of what the big time is. We've got to join the party small. But look, it was essentially, look at the physicality. It was a match between a group of seniors against a group just out of minor, essentially. And like their only guy nearly up to the age, Charlie Mitchell, looked physically dead after the McDonagh Cup final. I think he played the whole 80 minutes the week before. So look, they'll be physically an awful lot stronger next year. Doesn't mean they'll get to win an All-Ireland over the next few years, because I'm sure there'll be a target on their back. But definitely this group of players have something special about them. And like they have a guy in Screeney who looks like he's a special talent, and he's going to be one of those, I think, that Offaly fans are nearly going to do such a protection job on him. And if you even go close to breeding on him, they'll be roaring for free. Like, so he's going to be one of those sort of players that you love to hate maybe over the next few years if you're an opposition team or an Offaly lad looking to get to see the best out of him.
Denis, just in terms of what Liam Cahill's doing at the moment, if Tipperary had to come in second position in the Munster Championship, you'd have been looking at a provincial final this weekend. A lot of injuries with Tipperary. Gerard O'Connor looks like he might be gone for the season. Brian McGrath as well. You already had injury issues with, I'm sure Cathal Barrett's back now after the concussion thing. I'm pretty sure he played against Dublin in a challenge last week. But there's also other injuries there as well. Jason Ford, so on and so forth. There's a lot of lads out for the season. Is it a blessing in disguise? I mean, you as a county manager, the times where you're looking at it, we could do with the 3 weeks off here just to get going again, reset.
Yeah, it's nice to get a block there where you can just do a bit of training and put the heads down. Definitely, whoever loses the Munster final, they're going to be fairly sore, and they'll be back into meet, I suppose, the Leinster or whoever comes through the other side. So yeah, it might be a blessing. We cut it very tight, one point for Cork, and we could have been gone out of it. So cut it tight, but coming into our isn't a disaster by any means, because Limerick and Clare are going to go hard at it, and whoever loses that is going to be on the back foot, and they'll struggle maybe to get themselves up for the rest of the championship.
Limerick won it from third spot in 2018, so they built
Let's
a
not
bit of
get ahead of
momentum
ourselves,
there.
Shane.
No, I just said I'm just stating facts.
Yeah, but then it's like the path potentially. Okay, all right. So Tipper expected to beat Offaly. Then you're looking at the loser of Kilkenny against Galway this weekend. And Kilkenny, for example, let's say they lose, Adrian Mullen's out for the season. They have a couple of injury issues as well. Like, I'm sure Liam Cahill and the panel there are looking at and thinking there's a path here to an All-Ireland semi-final.
Most definitely. With all due respect to Offaly, Tip should be winning that match. They're a tier below us. And then you're looking at the loser of the Leinster final. And again, they'll be, whoever loses that are going to have issues. And the boys will be able to have a look at it, see what went wrong for them, plan around it. We've been good at planning. The boys have been good at planning the downfall of teams. Probably part of the Waterford problem was Waterford were going poorly, and it was hard to put a plan together for them because you didn't know where to go with the plan. We're nearly better having seen a team and knowing where their strengths and weaknesses are, and then plotting our team around that. That's what the boys seem to be doing, and it has worked well so far.
Yeah, plus the Waterford game, it was the only time in this year's championship where we had 1 week between games. Everything else was, you had a big lead into Clare, you had 2 weeks before Cork, you had 2 weeks before Limerick. It's something that Liam Cahill and Michael for next year, I think they've tipped schedule next year, might have 2 blocks of games 1 week apart, so that they'll have to definitely deal with something they're going to have to maybe learn from in terms of not allowing that sort of flatness to happen next year where they've only 7 days between games.
Denis, I'd imagine you have to get to school at this stage, do you?
Yeah, they're waiting for me inside in St. Column Hills, so they'll be disappointed if I'm not in a few minutes.
Cheers, Dennis. Best of luck for the championship.
Thanks very much, lads. Thank you.
Cheers. Okay, so yeah, definitely best of luck to Denis and the Tipperary Camogie team heading forward, starting off with the Dublin game this weekend. Are you excited by the Munster final this weekend, the Leinster final also?
I would. I suppose the Munster final, I'm finding it very hard. Just in terms of looking at the I suppose what we're expecting. Imagine how good just watching on telly the first match could be, and the second match could be a little flat. I know that the fixtures were met at the start, but geez, I don't know. I always thought maybe the Munster final should be the second one, just in terms of that's the big one of the two, from terms of the potential of what we could get. Look, Limerick and Clare doesn't need to be built up any more than it has been. The players have done it over the last few years. It's Clare probably the team that has closest to figuring Limerick out. Now you have Limerick coming off the back of losing to Clare a few weeks ago in their own backyard. They won't want that to happen. The ins and outs of how the matches in Limerick, we're leaning towards the fact that Brian Lohan is challenging his players to say, let's go in there and beat him again. Let's show him that the second round of the championship was no fluke. If we go in there and beat him a second time, we're serious All-Ireland contenders now. I think they already are. But I just think it's so brilliantly set up, this final. I suppose there's a little bit of silly buggers going on. I think Conor Cleary's not been ruled out, even though we think he probably is. But would you put beyond Clare maybe to stick a one of these injections in his shoulder to get him through the match? I wouldn't put it beyond them. I think Kilkenny are not ruling out Adrian Mullen either, but it looks highly unlikely he's going to play against Galway. So, but look, it's brilliantly set up. Should be a fabulous atmosphere in Limerick. I'm leaning towards Clare. There's something about me think that they'll get the job done. And this is not. I think Limerick are probably playing as well as they were last year. I think I'd agree with a lot with John Kiley. I think his comments yesterday that it's perceived that Limerick are not going as well, but I think the level of competition has risen in Munster, and it's making them look like they've come back to the back, but I don't think they have.
Okay, well, we're delighted now that we're joined by Anthony Shelly to talk about Tipperary football. And Anthony, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks,
the first thing to talk about is the fact that David Power has stepped down. What were your thoughts when you saw the news?
He announced it in the dressing room, and Saturday he told the players on Saturday in the dressing room that was probably going to be his last game. So, yeah, sure. Look, David, I think we said in our Friends of Tipperary football post last night that David Power bleeds blue and gold, and he does. He's given everything to Tip from the time he was involved in Celtic back in 2006, and I think he's been involved in football every year since. So, a well-deserved break. I suppose when you look back at David's career, for most Tipperary footballs, the 2011 All-Ireland final will probably be the standout moment for us. We never thought that we'd see days like that, or even the Munster senior final in 2020, even though we couldn't be there because of COVID. Like, they're the two standout moments, and David was manager for both. Like, even in 2012, we beat Kerry down in Tralee, we beat Cork down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and then we beat Kerry again in the Munster final. And it'll show you how far David had brought us, and the fact that we got caught by Mayo in the quarter final, and for a Tipperary football team to be disappointed that they didn't put back-to-back All-Irelands together, like, it'll show you where David had brought us. And everything that you see going on now with development squads and all that was all driven by David. So he's just a huge body of work put into Tipperary football. This year didn't go as we would have wanted it. We lost a lot of players through natural retirements, and one or two stepped away, and then every marquee player we had seemed to get injured. Getting all the wrong lads injured, as they say. And so it was a really difficult year. I think even if we were in Division 4 with the injuries you had, we probably would have struggled to come out of it. But it was a really long, difficult year. All we can do is wish David the best, thank him for everything he did. And you know what? I doubt that's the last we've seen of David Power. When he recharges the batteries, he'll be back at some level, I'd say.
Shane?
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. Like, he's stuck from back to 2006, and you'd argue that Tipperary sort of laid the template in terms of development squads concepts in the country, and like I think every other county has sort of followed Tip's blueprint since, and it's sort of, now that everybody's doing the same, sort of Tip are sort of gone back to maybe where they were, I suppose, for a lot of our history. But like, it's been some ride for the last decade. Like I said, David in with a lot of it. Like, managed it under 21s for a couple of seasons as well, and unlucky to lose to a good Cork team in 2014. Then he got the Wexford job for a couple of years. Probably from David's point of view, probably just went in at the wrong time. That great Wexford team was probably coming to an end, and probably he tested himself, and it probably stood himself in great stead for when he took on the Tip job then in 2020.
Yeah. Jesus, when you think back, I seen a photograph there the other day. I think David was 5 or 6, and he was a mascot with the team back in the 80s. And not too many mascots go on to manage the team. Yeah, the development squads, well, they were always kind of hit and miss. Like, it was David and Pat Maroney really put the shoulder to the wheel, got him up and organised. In conjunction, it has to be said, with Denis Maher and the games and development. Like, they were the template. But you must remember too, back then we had access to the dual players, and that was a huge thing. Like, we had 4 or 5 dual players on that 2011 team, and probably more on the 2012 team. I think Willie Maher was in charge of the minor hurlers in 2012. Yeah. Willie had 8 dual players on it.
Yeah, so I think at 15 there was nearly 11. I think the teams that got to the 2 All-Ireland finals. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, probably could still do more around the dual player up to, obviously, at under 17 as it is now, and the way the Munster Hurling and Munster Football Championships are set up. I'm not sure that's actually an option at minor level, but we could probably, keep lads playing football up until 16 years of age. If they haven't made if they haven't made their first year minor at hurling, if they wanted to do it, But we certainly shouldn't be putting the gun to their head at 15 years of age, say pick hurling or football. I've often said it before. It's only a couple of years earlier they were writing letters to Santi, and now you're asking them to pick a sport for the rest of their lives. Like, it's not fair. We could do more around it, but I'm not sure if the will is there.
Anthony, just in terms of like where Tipperary football is at, and you said it's been a long, difficult year, which it obviously has been. Do you where's Tipperary football at, broadly speaking, and like, do the injuries sort of make it look like is it a bit of a false position given all the injuries and setbacks this year?
Yeah, I don't think we're in a good place, Shane, to be honest. I think the standard of our club competitions is very, very poor. Like, you have the same 3 or 4 showing up every year, like in Clonmel Commercial seems to be way ahead of everybody else, and people seem to, from my point of view, would just see teams maybe waving the white flag a bit and saying, Clonmel, rather than Clonmel Commercials are so ahead, we'll never beat them. Like, so rather than trying to get up to their standards, of Clonmel Commercials, they've nearly accepted their fate, and now rather than maybe training for senior football, they're happier to try maybe get up to intermediate hurling or something like that. And most of their efforts are going into hurling. And like, it's much like hurling. You have to be at it all the time. But the first thing we have to do is improve the standard of our senior football. I think the move this year to reduce it to 12 will probably make it a bit more. 12 teams at senior, 12 at intermediate, probably make it, a little bit more competitive. But there probably is more work to be done on that. Like, probably give it a few years. It may need to come down to 8.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I'd agree with you. Yeah, I know. It really, this was the county championship. Really, only gets going nearly at semi-final stage when you get the real good teams up against each other. Because like there is a gulf in the group stages. Like as you said, some clubs nearly know their fate up against Commercials at some stage. But like there has been slippage. Like Mile Rovers have slipped a bit. They don't look like, while they have good players, they don't really have star quality coming through from what we would associate them over the years. In fairness, the likes of your own Brackens are pushing on. Ballina really seem to be really enjoying the ride up to football. I see that they played a cracking league semi-final with Brackens last weekend, and I believe John Mahan is in with Ballina and in an advisory capacity. Like they're not happy this year with just going up to senior. They're planning on staying there for a while. Like so. But like I do think I do. I suppose something to put to Tui in terms of what type of an appointment is needed next for the seniors. Does it need Stuart Leitrim and what Mead and Lowe did, Mickey Harter and any more, and a big name maybe that would entice some of the players that stepped away back that still have a couple of years left, or do you go with somebody within the Tipperary setup and we start building from the bottom again, like and do it low key? I think they have 2 avenues of where I suppose the football board ultimately will have the final call of what's needed. Do they need to maybe go back to late 07 and try and find sort of a John Evans character who wasn't a splash hire, he was exactly the right person at the right time?
Yeah, to be different opinions within the football community on this. A lot of people would be, we should stay local, and there are a few good people there. Like, I mean, I know Charlie McGeever has been involved there for a few years. Charlie would be a good appointment. Niall Fitz is did good work this year with the ones. No, ultimately they lost. Like, so you don't want to be kind of celebrating moral victories, but
they were much improved. Like this year,
it was much improved considering that group had lost by 20 points at minor level. So to back to a point or two, and Clare went on to put up a good performance against Kerry. Myself, I think, if I was 18 or 19 years of age, like Tipperary football, like particularly with the results in the last year and the way the club championship, it's not sexy at all at the moment. Like, and I think we probably need an outside appointment just to make it sexy again. I'd be thinking maybe somebody like Kieran Donaghy could be saying, look, we'll half your travel.
He's the one that comes into my head, because you think he's had a couple of years with Armagh. Maybe he thinks maybe it's time to run my own ship here. Like let's say half the travel as well. But then you're going down to Division 4. But then I was thinking Mickey Hart went to Louth in Division 4, Andy Moran, okay, he got Leitrim to a certain level, but he generated a bit of enthusiasm there for a while. Tony McEntee getting a great run out of Sligo at the moment. So there is, while there's drawbacks from Division 4, Ushie McConville and Wicklow as well, but it does give you a chance to, I suppose, develop without the pressure being on you straight away.
Yeah, well, remember what you have is, even though the results didn't go their way this year, you have a really good bunch of players there, right? They're in transition. A lot of them probably need another year. Next year, they'll probably be that bit better with strength and conditioning and stuff like that, because and with the experience, like an awful lot of lads got game time this year, like so, and all that will stand to them next year. And possibly Division 4 is the place to improve, rather than always being in a battle in Division 3. Like when you have a young team like us, like Division 4 is not uncharted territory for Tipperary. I was talking to Declan Brown the other day, and I looked it up myself. 19 of the last 30 years we've been in Division 4. Declan Brown has 2 All-Stars, went through his whole career playing in Division 4, never played in Division 3. It was either Division 4 or it was back then, Division 2B. So, like, Division 4 is probably the level that we're generally at. We just got a bit spoiled over the last 10 years with a group of players that we had. And I think, as I said, I think we need to do something. And of course, we'll come down to finance as well. These lads don't come cheap, and I'm not sure if the money was there, or if it was there, if the will is there to give it to the Tipperary footballers. But I think we need to start thinking outside the box and going and looking, because what you have, as I said, these lads train as hard as any tip team that I've seen over the last few years. It's just that if you weren't in the dressing room beforehand, no Shane, it would have driven you mad. Like when you see us coming to the half of the line and going across and going backwards and everything like that. That was driving David Power mad as well, because the instruction about 100 times in the dressing room beforehand, when you get it, kick it in. When you get it, kick it in. But, that's only because, I suppose lack of confidence with the losses was one. But two, I know, as Mike Tyson used to say, everybody has a game plan until they get slapped in the mouth. Like, and these lads is grand in training, but when you're getting hit harder in the match by bigger and stronger lads, the easy thing to do is just turn around and give it sideways.
What's your thoughts, Anthony, having gone through a season of the Talteann Cup and the group stages there? What have you made of it? Was it almost like, oh God, we face into a Talteann Cup, or were you delighted to have a fresh competition to face into? Like, I know you had the injuries and all that, but broadly speaking, do you think it's a good thing?
I think it's a great thing. I think we were really looking forward to it, and particularly like when we got Kerry in the first round. We knew, or Kerry in the semi-final, we knew our fate. Like, so it was great to, from very early on, we were looking forward to playing in the Talteann Cup. I'd say the only game that we weren't looking forward to was the Waterford game, which ironically was the only one we won. Like, but I think it's a great competition. I think they have it about right now as well with the format as compared to last year. It gives every team games, and that's all you want. I think I was never in love, even though we won it one year. I was never in love with the Tommy Murphy Cup. But I think this is about right. You're playing teams that are in or around your own level, and think whether you're under 6 or junior B hurler or footballer, all you want to be is competitive.
And like we did get a stinker of a group with Meath probably the top seed in it, and then down probably the strongest of the second seeds. Like, so, like, it was going to be tough, and like Tip needed everybody to be fit and firing just to even have a chance to be competitive. Like, and that never happened. Like every time Stephen O'Brien seemed to get fit, he seemed to break down, and like in terms of Tip need more direct runners and physicality. And we even saw it last weekend against Waterford. The impact of Conal Kendi when he's there is massive. Like he cut through the middle a couple of times. This guy's been injured. This guy's been injured all year, and that's exactly what we've been missing.
Yeah, and like what we were lacking all year was pace in the middle third, and
Yeah.
Connell brought that to us, and also James Morris, who was with the under-20 hurlers.
Oh, he's a great footballer.
Yeah,
he is a great footballer.
Like, he'll have a long career. So
yeah,
lads like that would bring up that bit of pace, which it's building blocks, but it'll all help along the way. And as I said, Division 4 might be the way to do it. Just to go back to what Shane said, like about the Talteann Cup, we were kind of hoping when the draw was made that the likes of Meath would be thinking, oh no, not the Talteann Cup, like, But unfortunately they came fully loaded and they seem to be taking it seriously, like, I suppose O'Rourke maybe wants a win in his first season, wants to win something because a long time for them. But yeah, for them it might be a little bit, for teams like me that probably expected to be in the Sam Maguire. It's hard to know how it was hard to know at the start how they take it, but they seem to be taking it seriously. They've won all their matches, and but for teams like Tipperary, I think it's a great competition.
Yeah, I just say it's something I wrote in my column this week for the paper about rushing to judgment, and whether it's an Irish thing or just I think about modern society, that everybody agrees that the Talteann Cup is working well, but yet we're halfway through. 2/3 of the way through the first round robin in the All-Ireland series, and all you're hearing is the knockers out there. There's too many games. They're coming too quick. It's not spread out enough. They're not competitive enough, and like there's definitely a snobbishness in the top echelons of senior football. That while it's great to have Loud playing Mayo and putting it up to them, we really don't want them there. We want Mayo playing Dublin and Mayo playing Kerry and Mayo playing Tyrone, and that is. I'm finding it's a bit obnoxious. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, it is. It's I suppose
it's like the strong Division 1 counties with the real. We just want to see the real big dogs playing each other more often, and maybe we'll probably get that from the preliminary quarterfinals on. But I'm just finding that, God, this is exactly what we wanted, and it's not been given a chance yet.
If there's a weakness in the system, is like there's a lot of games just to knock out 4 teams.
Yeah,
and there is possibly too many games in that, but also like the product itself at the moment is a very hard watch. So the least football you watch, probably the better. Like so yeah, but isn't that the same with every championship? Like, I mean, even in the hurling, if you took the Munster Championship out of it, Premier League, it doesn't really get going till the latter stages of it. Like, hurling is different in that they have such a good product in the Munster Hurling Championship. But as I said, there might be a tweak. I'm not sure. If you finish third, you deserve to go through. I'm not sure. I know you have to look after New York, but there's if you don't finish in the top 2, I think you deserve to be gone.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. I think it takes all the jeopardy out of it. Like, to be fair though, like, I know you mentioned Loud there and they pushed Mayo well, but like all these teams that get more exposure to playing championship action against the better teams, like I would have thought that this would bring up the likes of and Anthony, you'd probably know this better, but the likes of Loud, the likes of teams that are aspiring to the next level, that all this exposure should make them a bit better, because it's not just one and done like it was in past years.
Yeah, it is. I think it's a bit like when if you have a decent underage team, or half decent, you're always better playing in the A competition rather than trying to win a soft B, aren't you? Because for later on in years, the exposure to playing against the better teams will improve you. And I think it is great for even for us to be playing the likes of Kerry. They're the days you dream of. But I mean, you have to be realistic about the results as well. But playing the likes of Kerry and that will improve us for playing the lesser teams later on. In the Talteann Cup. That's the only advantage you can see to it. But they think they have it right. I'm not sure. I think in football maybe it's time to. The traditions that hate us, but maybe it's time to get rid of the provincial championships, because apart from Ulster, the rest are just a joke, really.
Yeah. I like. I suppose there's a lot of little perks. It's like, I think when it's over and managers sit down and analyze how they will go through the round robin next year, you think finishing second it'll be a lot better than finishing third, because like you think if form holds on Saturday week, some big name is going to have to go to Killarney to play Kerry in a preliminary quarter-final. If you think you can get them at home instead of having to go to Killarney, you'll take it. And maybe if there was a little carrot there, I don't know if it's possible that if you top your group and you get straight to a quarter-final, you play the quarter-final at home. Like, I'm not sure the draw of Croke Park is what it used to be for quarter-finals. That maybe, like, take Derry for Derry are already in a quarter-final. You can't tell me that, what is it, 18, 20,000 in Celtic Park, that you couldn't fill that place, create a bit of a buzz in Derry that weekend for a home. Like, I just think if you create enough perks within the round robin format.
Well, that's why American football works so well.
I know people that probably the money, the bean counters in Croke Park think, God, 20,000 in Celtic Park is not a big crowd, but that'll probably be offset by maybe most years Dublin getting 60 or 70,000 for their quarter final in Croke Park, or Kerry getting a full house in Killarney. I just think if you put enough carrots in front of teams, they'll chase it.
Yeah, that's like in the NFL. If you top your division, you get home draw the whole way home. It's a huge perk because home teams tend to win more. Yeah. Anthony, just in terms of the Sam Maguire and the Talteann Cup, and I know obviously like with Tipperary, you're probably fully focused on that, so you're not seeing everyone else. But would you have favourites for the two competitions?
From what we've seen in the Talteann Cup, I know some of the lads disagree, but I was actually very impressed with Meath, and I think they'll go a long way. We're well used to Cavan, so I'd say Meath or Cavan for the Talteann Cup will be, that's not groundbreaking news, I suppose, to anyone, but I would be fancying Meath, and I know from talking to the lads on the bus the other day, they'd be fancying Cavan. But in the Sam Maguire, there's nobody standing out, is there?
A lot of people are mentioning Galway, but they haven't.
I'd be fancying Galway.
Yeah,
I just think that the physicality and the depth, and a couple of the star quality players as well.
And I think Kerry are really struggling to replace. I know they're All-Ireland champions, but really struggling to replace David Moore. Even us, when we went out to Killarney, we targeted that. We go along with all our kickouts because they were poor in the air. I think we came away winning 82% of our own kickouts that day. And if we can do that, everybody else will be targeting them as well. Because we were trying to keep short because we were perceived we wouldn't have been the best in the air as well, but we knew we'd be able to beat Kerry in the air. So they're getting their hands on primary ball from kickouts is huge in football, and that's why teams will push aggressively on Shane Ryan in the Kerry goal and make him go long.
That would be interesting.
If they're not getting their hands on the ball, then every ball they get is going to have to go over the bar, because the opposition will be breaking 50-50 at least with them.
Yeah, Anthony, what did you make of the likes of Clifford and Jack McCarron and Oisin Gallen and this exhibition of kicking we saw over the weekend? There's players out there that are now able to pop it over from outside the 45, which is some going.
Yeah, it is. It's not every manager would encourage it now because
but isn't it we're all looking for ways to make football more appealing, and I know there's trial rules coming in college next year, but I definitely think the 2 point score from beyond the 45 from play has to be considered. I know people might think is it something similar to maybe what was done in hurling, where 2 point sideline cut, but I'd agree with that. A 2 point sideline cut where the opposition can't challenge you, I don't agree with that. But I think a 2 point shot from open play definitely could be worth looking into.
Yeah, they definitely. That's one option. They definitely need to do something because it is really hard watching. I suppose you hark back to years ago. An inter-county player kicking the ball over the bar from 45 yards is now seen as that's amazing. Nobody does it anymore. And it's maybe the 2 points is the way to go. It certainly would encourage, but then would you have less trench shots from crazy angles, and the inside forwards are going to get starved of the possession. The one that I don't think lads take enough advantage of it. I'm not even a huge fan of it, but when it's there, it should be used as the advanced mark. we don't take enough advantage of that. Like, it's like a free shot at goal. Like, you know,
Mm.
if I was to make one change, it would be I'd reduce it to 13 aside, and open up a bit more space for players to get into it. I know lads would say, well, then the fittest team will always win, but anytime I've been involved with a team that we play 13 aside, it's always been a great game, you know. Loads of room, you know. It allows them the so-called the Adam Screenies of the Gaelic football world that wouldn't be the biggest and strongest, but still sort of gives them that little. And all you need is an extra couple of yards. It's not like it's 7 aside or anything like that. Like, I mean, there's still 13 players on the field. That's the change I would make.
Well, look, Anthony, you've been brilliant with your time. Really appreciate it. And
Cheers,
hopefully
Anthony.
we'll chat again.
Yeah, no problem, Shanes.
Oh, sorry, I cut him off mid-flow there. But yeah, final thing to talk about then, the Leinster final this weekend. How do you see that going? Henry Shefflin coming up. Like, obviously, he came up against Kilkenny twice last year. He's already done it this year again. But here's an opportunity to win silverware at the cost of his home county.
Yeah, it is a nice one set up. Like, you think, okay, they drew in the round robin, probably Kilkenny the better team for a lot of it, but they faltered down the home stretch, and similarly in a way against Wexford. So I just wonder, in terms of, is there a fitness issue with Kilkenny that against in the two really big games in the group stage, that they weren't able to see these games out, and you would think that was the mark of the Cody team, in terms of, like, when they got you in a grip after an hour with any bit of a lead, like, you're in serious trouble. Like, and okay, like, both teams have injury problems. We know the Kilkenny ones with Mullen and Mikey Dwyer and Martin Keoghan, and I think Cathal Mannion doesn't look like he's going to make it for Galway. I think it's a bigger one for Galway, because Kilkenny have had the injury in Indian sign over in the last few years, and I think Shefflin will want to think, okay, whatever we do this year, if we beat Kilkenny, it's a step in the right direction. But then Galway haven't been overly wonderful. Like, they were, in fairness, they did brilliantly to come back against Dublin, but geez, they shouldn't have found themselves in a 10 or 12 point hole at one stage. Like, so it's hard to know. Like, they're like, it's another campaign where they're not getting the best out of Conor Wheel, and Conor Cooney has gone quiet, which is a big negative for him. I think when he's the leader of the attack, I think they pour an awful lot better. Like, so look, if they get a big game out of him, provided he starts, I would fancy Galway just with Kilkenny's injury situation. But look, if Kilkenny win it, would I be surprised? Not a bit of it.
No, they tend to they have that Indian sign over Galway in recent years. Like, if TJ goes on the inside, he's up against Grode McInerney. That'd be a good battle. If he's on the outside, maybe Dahi Burke. That's a good battle. So then the other one that really matters with Adrian Mullen out is Owen Cody. And Jack Grealish didn't start the last day, but I'd imagine he will here. And he's had tough times on Cody, who's just been brilliant in recent seasons. So that could be a defining clash there.
Yeah, I just hope the fans come out. I know there was a small crowd there last year. Like, it's Sunday 4:00. There's no excuses, and like I know both teams will still have an All-Ireland quarter-final or semi-final, but Jesus, we get so few games of hurling. You'd like to think, why not go and enjoy it for what it is? And like there's a great rivalry there between Kilkenny and Galway. You'd like to think it'll be strengthened maybe again if we got a really good game. And that, like, I don't while the Munster Championship is getting all the headlines, I think if we saw more of competitiveness within the Leinster teams, I think the product wouldn't be too far similar. It's just the fact that we don't get enough of those real rivalries between the Leinster counties, which is probably, apart from maybe Kilkenny Galway, Kilkenny Wexford, there's nothing really else there.
Yeah, I suppose the fact that there's a bit of a drop-off after you go through the first 3 or 4 teams in Leinster doesn't help, because the Galway-Kilkenny game at the start of the year, at the start of Leinster, felt like a bit of a challenge match, and it didn't matter ultimately. Like Dublin-Galway, the last day, I was in at that, and it was decent fare at times, but you're talking about a relatively empty Croke Park, even though the footballers were about to show up. So it doesn't lend itself to that sort of white-hot atmosphere.
No, I thought the first half of that, where even when Dublin went up ahead, I thought it was... I remember putting a tweet up, like, it was 2-15 to 12 points at halftime, and said that's way too high scoring for, like, it looked like it was too easy for players on both teams to get shots off. And I think it definitely intensity rose in the second half, and definitely it definitely played to Galway's strength. So I think if they bring that, Henry, we wanted that second half intensity to come from the first minute, and I think they know they have to do it against Kilkenny this weekend, or else they'll be beaten.
Okay, well, that's it for the show this week. We'll be back next week, and we'll be previewing the big match against Offaly for the Hurlers.
Cheers.